Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We are live here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and all social media platforms with an update on Hurricane Ian. Take a look. You can see winds are at 155 miles an hour. Matter of fact, the storm center is actually about to make landfall, if it not already. As I zoom in and show you what's going on, you can see the eyewall is right over Tampa Bay. Fort Myers is right there. Sustained winds, again, 155 miles per hour. That's a strong in Category 4. For it to be a Category 5 or greater, that's 157 miles per hour. So you can see it's nearly at Cat 5 status, and it's moving northeast at 9. So that's the big factor. As you take into account the sustained winds at 155 plus the forward movement, the biggest threat for any hurricane at this size is storm surge. That is the inundation, the pushing of water as it moves in from the southwest towards the coastline. So Bonita Springs, Fort Myers, Marco Island, all under the threat of storm surge upwards of 12 to 18 feet as of this afternoon. And again, it's 1:54 on a Wednesday. This is the 1 p.m. update from the Hurricane Center. So as I see right now, it looks like the center of the eye is moving right west of Fort Myers near Captiva, Florida, south of Boca Grande and south of Port Charlotte. Central pressure is down to 937 millibar, and this is a dangerous, catastrophic Category 4 hurricane, which, by the way, is covering a lot of real estate. From the Florida Keys to Miami, there's a lot of tropical bands on that eastern side. In addition to Daytona Beach, you can see the size of this system is expanding pretty much all across the Florida Peninsula and the Sunshine State. But biggest takeaway, the eye wall, what you're seeing right there, in addition to heavy rain, that's where the winds are at 155 miles per hour. That expands about 25 miles away from the center eye wall. And that is the latest update on Hurricane Ian, likely to make landfall, if not already, just near, let's say, Fort Myers and Bonita Springs and near Captiva, Florida, and near Pine Island as well. I want to show you this real quickly. So this is the Ian wind history. Take a look. The last 48 hours, it has rapidly intensified. It went from 100-mile-per-hour winds on Monday night. Now it's up to 155, a huge jump in strength since Monday evening. Latest forecast shows it tracking over the Sunshine State as a tropical storm. So it'll remain a major hurricane for about the next 12 to 24 hours, but as it interacts with land, loses the water source, it'll weaken somewhat pretty quickly through Thursday morning, re-emerging over water. As I show you right here, zooming in, you can see as a tropical storm off of the Daytona Beach Thursday morning, and as it interacts with more water, it may even briefly, quickly intensify as it approaches once again South Carolina by about this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, as we wrap up the weekend. So that is the latest guidance on that, and you can see by Saturday afternoon, it might even be pushing farther inland towards the Appalachian Mountains and towards the Carolinas. Biggest takeaway also, we've talked about storm surge. You can see winds are at 155 miles per hour, so that's pushing in water, inundation. Fort Myers under the gun for 12 to 18 feet of storm surge, and that does vary depending on where you're at, where your friends or family at in this part of Florida. Why this varies? Well, it's because of the rotation of Ian. So if it makes landfall somewhere near Fort Myers, if not near Captiva, Florida, and north of the Keys, that center will be right there. So what that's going to do is push a lot of water inland, and that's why flood areas will be up to 18 feet. That's very high. That's going to cause a lot of damage in that part of the world. And you can see Tampa Bay will be kind of on the outskirt of that storm. Although seeing some pretty heavy rain, however, offshore winds will kind of flood the canals and push water outside of Tampa. So earlier in the week, we were chatting about like the potential for Tampa Bay being the direct hit of Hurricane Ian. However, it looks like Fort Myers, as you saw on radar, going to be the biggest takeaway and biggest impacted area for Florida later on today. As a matter of fact, you saw, and I'll go right back to it, landfall is imminent, if not already happening, right on the western coast of the Florida Peninsula. Take a look. Heavy rainfall drenching the entire state. We'll just zoom in and show you full screen. Latest update again, 155-mile-per-hour winds, Tampa Bay, Fort Myers. There's the eye right there, and the center is now moving over land, over that latest barrier island, as that last frame kind of shows you right there. Bam. And that means it would be technically a landfall. We'll have to get the official word from the Hurricane Center, which is what I'm keeping a close eye on. And matter of fact, let me check and see what they are saying right now. Latest shows, let's see. Hurricane Ian is expected to making landfall over Cayo Costa and Captiva, Florida, south of St. Petersburg and south of Newport. So it looks like it is currently making landfall at this hour. So the Hurricane Center should briefly announce it later on today, and that's something to really keep an eye on. But despite it, it's still going to be a catastrophic storm as it continues to crank in a lot of water towards Fort Myers, Bonita Springs, and even towards the eastern part of the Florida Peninsula. Really incredible. And we talked about the Ida history, or the Ian history, and here's the forecast comb. We talked about the storm surge. That's the latest forecast guidance on that. Through Friday and Saturday, it should reemerge over water and move towards and back towards the Carolinas. How much rainfall are they looking at? So here's the latest on that. You'll see, depending on where it exactly makes landfall, will dictate more on where areas of rain will be flood provoking. So you can see anywhere from Tampa Bay to Fort Myers, that northeastern swath of rain towards Daytona Beach is indicative of upwards of 18 to 2 feet of rain in a very, very short amount of time. That is the forecast rain totals. This is the graph or IBM forecast model. And you'll see Panama City, a lot of the panhandle will be left out of any rainfall. Despite some rain moving in right now, it's a pretty large system. Ian's huge in diameter. Matter of fact, the eyewall itself is 20 to 30 miles in diameter. So it's a huge system, but the heavy tropical rainfall is really going to be a specific swath between, let's say, Sarasota, Fort Myers, and Tampa Bay that'll move towards Daytona Beach and pretty much parallel I-95. And these are the forecast rain totals pretty much through Saturday night. And they'll shift farther north into the Carolinas by Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So that's the latest on that. But big takeaway, a lot of the areas to the north and towards the west are not going to see much action. However, a large swath of rain is going to move through the central part of the Sunshine State, where rain is going to be pretty abundant and flood provoking, and not to mention storm surge as well. It's 80 to 90 here in the city and pretty nice in San Antonio, but we'll keep it on hurricane coverage because it is Ian. It is the first major hurricane landfall of the year. We've had a major hurricane in the 2022 season, but this is the first landfall, especially in the Gulf of Mexico and in the United States. Take a look. We'll keep it on full screen for right now and show you what we got. This is the latest on Ian. 155 mile per hour winds as it is now making landfall just near Fort Myers and Captiva, Florida on this Wednesday afternoon. For it to be a Category 5, guys, it's not too far away from that. You can see it's 2 miles per hour less than a Category 5, a minimum. So despite that, and regardless of strength, it's still going to be very devastating for this part of the west coast of Florida as winds continue to crank in from the southwest and give a lot of rainfall. Matter of fact, I'll just show you the wind direction. Tampa Bay seeing offshore winds as we speak. Winds are wrapping around. Heavy rain around the eyewall as it is making landfall as we speak near Fort Myers and Captiva, Florida. And tropical bands of rain continue to move towards Miami, but mostly clouds over there, and that not much of a storm surge threat in Miami and on the east coast of Florida. But yeah, forward movement 9 miles per hour to the northeast, in addition to sustained winds at 155 miles per hour. It is a massive hurricane. It is catastrophic. It is almost a Cat 5. It's a strong and Cat 4. Let me take off these arrows and just kind of keep it on here right now as it's making landfall on the southwestern coast of Florida. We'll keep it on here for right now, guys, and we'll see you at the next update, but we'll let this loop for a little while longer. We'll go live in just a little bit, but we'll keep this looping for the next hour as Hurricane Ian continues to devastate this part of Florida.